So now that the Galileo project has gotten underway, like what could we expect in a very practical way? So I want to give you some concrete examples of how I think that this project could unfold over time and how this science could start to develop here. If they establish the existence of one UAP with a high resolution photograph, that's a huge accomplishment, huge accomplishment. Beyond that, if they could gather data about the different types of objects that are reported, if they could get proof that there's like these cigar shaped things, these weird silvery things, the tic tacs, who knows what else. But if they could get those high resolution photographs or other data proving that those things are there, they could start to create a taxonomy. Another thing they could do is really start to get more data and evidence about their motion and what they're doing. And as much data as you can get about their movements, the electromagnetic radiation they're putting off, all of those things, you get that data into the hand of theorists, and then they can maybe come up with theories that show why it works. And then those theories can then come back into technologies for us. There's another side in terms of like actually understanding them from an informational standpoint, which also could be interesting. If we could get more data about their patterns, if we could possibly start to try to figure out where these things are going, right? Because in the US Nimitz Encounter, this Tic Tac took off, it left. Where did it go? Does it loiter somewhere? Is there another ship? Does it go and just hang out in the water? I mean, in theory, if this thing is in our aerospace, we should be able to find a way to detect it, right? No matter how elusive it is or whatever, if it's a real thing in our real world, it should have evidence that we can capture, right? But I mean, it's not going to be easy. And then like another level would be, the issue about the ET's understanding of information. And here's what I'm talking about with that. In the USS Nimitz Encounter, the ship was, like say the ship was here and say this is the pilot. They communicated and established a point here in space called the cap point. It was like a rendezvous point that the pilots, everybody knows. If they say go back to the cap point, they know where that is. It's in their system. Fravor interacted with this Tic Tac, the Tic Tac leaves. Then the Tic Tac returns to this point. There was the cap point. So the Tic Tac knew where that point was, if you believe the testimony of the pilots, which I personally do. The Tic Tac knew to return to the exact coordinates that the pilot and ship set. How did that happen? We have no clue. And if that really happened, what this shows us is that there's limitations in our theory of reality that's holding us back. That's a limitation. I want to show you a slide that I love to use with David Bohm's quote on theory, and just sort of give you an example of like how this plays out in the real world historically, for instance. So for David Bohm, theory was just a form of insight, not a form of knowledge about the world is. And so his idea is that our theories, our insights, we put them up there and then we test them against reality. And then we're not afraid to throw out the ones that don't work. And we always keep in mind that every theory you have is an incomplete theory. You never have a complete theory of the world as it is. These theories are just like our screening filters that we use to kind of make our way through the world. We're kind of groping around in the dark, and it's kind of like hitting a light switch here and there, right? And he gives the example in here of how they used to think that there was two basic properties to celestial and earthly matter. Celestial matter had an inherent tendency to rise. Celestial matter had an intended tendency to sink. You can see why they thought that way, right? Like that was a very valid way to make inferences about what they were perceiving. But when Newton was able to throw that theoretical distinction aside and say to himself, as the apple falls, so does the moon or whatever, that led him to think maybe there's a universal theory of gravitation. And then he worked that out, and we know where we are today. So if we establish the UAPs, they're moving in ways that defy our physics, all that shows us is that our theories of physics are incomplete. And then the UAP can be seen as a signal to us from reality that's kind of like beckoning us to try to figure out like what's going on here. And it should go without saying, but that is only a good thing for us, because that just leads to increased knowledge, and it leads to new technologies. And it would be really nice if the US military would find a way to get the data that it has out, because if that were to get in the hands of scientists, it could really advance this field hugely, because the US military probably has some excellent observational data that would help give scientists some really good clues about how to set up their experiments and stuff like that. So US military, if anyone from the US military should happen to watch this video, will you please consider finding a way to scrub off any state secrets of that material you have and get it out? Because, really, it's a short-sighted policy to keep the American people out of this. It really is, because you're going to need us all, right? And we didn't win World War II just with the military. It was a team effort. We're not going to understand UAPs unless a majority of citizens are interested in it and involved in it and trusted as Americans to be a part of this process. So anyway, I hope that people find this interesting. I'm super excited to track the Galileo Project. And I'm going to try to follow it as closely as I can, because I think it has a real chance of success. And I think it's going to open some doors. So thanks for watching. If you enjoy the content, consider subscribing and have a great day.